The Soviet Union struggled with a centrally planned economy that proved inefficient and unsustainable over time. The state-controlled system stifled innovation, leading to stagnation and shortages of goods. The reliance on heavy industry also left other sectors neglected, exacerbating economic woes. The Soviet regime was marked by authoritarian rule and widespread suppression of dissent. Citizens faced restrictions on freedom of speech, assembly, and religion. This repression bred resentment and fueled discontent among the populace, eroding support for the government. The Soviet Union was a multi-ethnic state, comprising various nationalities with distinct languages, cultures, and histories. Ethnic tensions simmered beneath the surface, exacerbated by policies that favored the Russian majority and suppressed minority rights. Nationalist movements emerged seeking autonomy or independence from Moscow. In the 1980s, Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev introduced a series of reforms aimed at revitalizing the stagnant economy and modernizing the political system. Perestroika, economic restructuring, and glasnost, openness, loosened state control and encouraged debate, but also inadvertently weakened the centralized authority of the Communist Party. Gorbachev's reforms unleashed forces that the Soviet leadership struggled to control. Political liberalization emboldened dissidents, while economic restructuring exposed inefficiencies and corruption within the system. The loosening grip of the state paved the way for alternative power structures to emerge, challenging the authority of the Communist Party. Despite Gorbachev's efforts to reform the economy, the Soviet Union continued to decline economically. Inflation soared, consumer goods remained scarce, and production faltered. The state budget strained under the weight of military spending and subsidies to satellite states. Economic mismanagement and inefficiency hastened the collapse. The Baltic republics of Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania were among the first to assert their independence from the Soviet Union in the late 1980s. Mass demonstrations and grassroots movements demanded sovereignty, defying Moscow's authority. The Baltic states' successful secession set a precedent for other republics to follow suit. Ethnic tensions erupted into violence in various regions of the Soviet Union. In places like Georgia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan, long-standing grievances flared into armed conflicts and declarations of independence. The Soviet military's attempts to suppress these uprisings only fueled further resentment and strengthened nationalist fervor. The Soviet Union's control over Eastern Europe weakened as communist regimes crumbled under pressure from within and without. The fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989 symbolized the end of Soviet dominance in the region. The disintegration of the Warsaw Pact deprived the Soviet Union of its buffer zone and further isolated Moscow on the international stage. The collapse of communism in Eastern Europe and the USSR itself dealt a severe blow to the ideology that had underpinned Soviet rule for decades. Marxist-Leninist dogma lost its appeal as disillusionment with the regime grew. The failure of communism to deliver on its promises of prosperity and equality shattered the legitimacy of the Soviet state. The Soviet Union maintained a vast military apparatus to defend its territory and project power abroad. However, the cost of maintaining such a massive military strained the economy and contributed to the state's financial woes. The Soviet military also faced setbacks in conflicts such as the costly war in Afghanistan, which undermined morale and prestige. In August 1991, hardline elements within the Soviet government staged a coup against Gorbachev, seeking to halt his reforms and preserve the status quo. The coup collapsed in the face of popular resistance, but it further weakened the central government's authority and accelerated the Union's disintegration. On December 25, 1991, the Soviet Union officially ceased to exist when Gorbachev resigned as president of the USSR, transferring power to the leaders of the newly independent republics. The dissolution of the Soviet Union marked the end of an era and unleashed a wave of political, social, and economic transformations across Eurasia.